Welcome back to the second of the conversations we are having in regard to the current affairs of this country. Let me start by first appreciating all the people who watched last week's video. 20,000 views after 1 year break. Very encouraging. We got the feedback. We really appreciate it. And on behalf of my team, I want to say asante sana. Last week we were talking about the issue of reckless utterances by politicians and how we have learned over the years and why we must make sure we never allow politicians to make reckless statements, even in the heat of a political moment, because our country is more important than the interest of any single individual. Today I want to talk about hate politics. And I want to start using myself. When I lost the elections in August 2022, and then in September, the process of bursaries in Nyeri Town constituency began, my supporters felt unsure of what they were supposed to do. Some of them felt like they were betraying me going to apply for bursaries under a new member of parliament. So I met with a few of them and I sat down and I told them, look, I am no longer the member of parliament for Nyeri Town constituency. Somebody else now has that responsibility. And anything that I was able to do as a member of parliament is now being done by somebody else. And I also advised them that those monies for bursaries and for development under CDF and anything that was required from electricity connections to roads and everything would now have to be lobbied for by the person who had gotten elected. And you could see the level of confusion. And to some extent, at that moment in time, it was still raw. I mean, the loss of the election was still very raw. And at some point, you want to incite your supporters to boycott going to the office of the guy who beat you. And then you realize you can't do that because the person who will lose is not you. It's your supporters. You see, as I was telling these supporters of mine, your child cannot wait for 4 years or 5 years, God willing, until I come back. Right? He has to go or she has to go to school now. If you have a need, for example, an electricity connection, you can't say that you're not going to go and ask the current member of parliament whether you hate him or not, whether you voted for him or not. Because if you don't ask him, how are you going to get help? Right? Remember, the responsibility of that office is to support and ensure delivery of services to you, whether you elected that person or not. When I was member of parliament, I used to give bursary to everybody, including people who used to insult me in the streets, because that was not my money. I was just a steward. I just wanted to make sure that everybody who needed bursary in Nyeri got bursary, political affiliations aside. Now, I travel to Nyeri. I use the Nairobi-Nyeri road once or twice every week. And it's no carriage most of the way, and it's still being worked on. Eh? So every time you're here, you see a bit more has been extended. So the last time I was here, I saw they're doing some work in Karatina. Then over here at the bypass, at the flyover, there's a interchange being worked on at Marwa. It's working, it's happening. Now, this is being done by a government I did not support, that I voted and campaigned aggressively against. But those things they're doing are helping me, right? Where I live in Ngong was a very bad piece of road, down 2.5 kilometers. From the member of parliament of my area is from a party I did not support. Around 3 months ago, they started tarmacking that piece of road. And now, it's nearly done, right? I am using that road. I didn't support this government. What is the point I'm making? I have heard over and over again several leaders suggesting to people that one of the things we should not do is we are not part of this government. And what I find ironical is that the people who are making these comments are the people who actually voted and campaigned for this government, not us. We in Jubilee did not support this government at all. We did everything we could to make sure this government did not get into office. They got into office. Once they got into office, the government is only one. If you need, right now, you need to get a passport, you can only go to immigration. If you need a waiver of anything, you have to go to the current establishment that does those waivers. Now, there's a continuous conversation, which is actually incitement. of ordinary Kenyans against certain things that have been offered by government. For me, I find that very selfish of the leaders who are doing that, and this is my point. During the colonial times, we did everything we could to chase the colonialists from this country. They left. Today in Nyeri, the regional DCI office is housed in an infrastructure that was built by the colonialists. In fact, one of the offices is a room where Dedan Kimathi was detained. Structures that were done by people we hated, people who misused us, are useful to us today. I think about it and I'm asking myself, we have 2 years and 2 months to the 2027 election. There seems to be a concerted effort to make sure that this government is one term, right? In 2027, people will decide whether this government will be one term. My question is, what happens between now and 2027? If you have a sick person in hospital, can you access medical services? If you have, you need a road done, is it been done? If you need to educate your children, are they getting educated? It's very easy for us to get carried away with politics and forget that people are living on a daily basis. If you're hungry today, you can't wait for 2 years to get full. And unfortunately, the kind of politics that is being done is moving away from this. And this is a challenge, especially to those who are pursuing opposition politics. We need to ask ourselves, we want to mobilize people to make this government a one-term government. Noble task, right? Political competition. But between now and then, are we challenging this government to deliver for people today? What do we have to say about the education system that exists? Or is our conversation purely limited to how we are going to remove this government from power? I use the example of the Nairobi-Nyeri road and my personal experiences. I have friends who have used various services from government and benefited from them. And I ask myself, if those people had not gone out of the way. For example, if you have my supporter in Nyeri and you don't go and apply for bursary because I told you not to, what happens to your child and you need that bursary? What are you going to do, right? So I want to make a direct appeal to those of us who are doing opposition politics. We want to remove this government from power in 2027. However, our supporters expect us to give them solutions for today, tomorrow, and yesterday. If your supporter and the people who are following you around and coming for rallies with you don't have food on the table today, you can't tell them to wait until 2027. Why don't we mobilize? For example, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua had a very noble campaign against illicit alcohol, right, and drugs. He's not in office anymore, but he's still a voice in this country, in this region. Illicit alcohol and drugs haven't gone away because he left office. Can he use his voice and the authority he has and the new party he has to challenge this government that kicked him out to do something about illicit alcohol today? Or are we going to be told to wait until we kick Ruto out of government to do something about it? How many lives will we have lost before we get into power? Because, you know, we have to follow the Constitution. The Constitution says the next election is in August 2027. This is May 2025. More than 2 years between now and then. We have people struggling with illicit alcohol. We have people struggling with illegal drugs, right? We have people struggling to access medical services. We have people struggling to educate their children today. And the problem about a child is that you have to educate him today. In fact, most of the kids in school today might not be in school in 2027. We have to struggle to educate them today. The role of the opposition, a good opposition, is supposed to challenge the current government and put pressure on them to do the right thing. For example, we're talking about dignifying the payslip. Are we saying that Kenyans are going to suffer the payslip for another 2 years so that we can dignify it in 2027? Is there something we can do with the mobilization capacity we have today to get that payslip dignified today? Or are we so scared that this government is going to get some things right and then people are going to change their mind about supporting it? Because if what we need done is specifically for the interest of the people who follow us or who we represent, then we should be looking for their best interests even when we are not in office. We cannot tell people, for example, to boycott government services today because we're not in government. And by the way, what does that mean? Is it possible for a community to leave government? I have heard that said by many people. Actually, the people who ran against us in 2022. Today they say we took Mount Kenya into government and now we are removing Mount Kenya from government. And I ask myself, what does that mean? Is it that you have had an agreement within the Mount Kenya region, for example, that we are going to boycott all government services? Does it mean that there's nobody from Mount Kenya today who is looking for a tender to do supplies in government? Does it mean there's nobody in Mount Kenya today who is trying to access a government service, who is looking for a driving license, who is looking for a passport? Because when you say you're not in government, what are you talking about? Communities cannot come out of government. The same way an individual can boycott a government. You cannot boycott a government as a community, because unless you're saying that that government is not offering services to that particular region exclusively, or that community has boycotted government for that period of time. So I think it's a responsibility of the leadership that we have to talk to people. Like now, if I had influence, and I have to some extent, I would advise Mount Kenya people to be strategic and tactical. I remember watching when Ruto came to Mount Kenya a couple of weeks ago, and the guy was literally doing everything he could to make Mount Kenya feel that there is nothing wrong, that his fallout with Rigathi Gachagua was individual, not community-based. Today the reality is, and this is something I am worried about, maybe that's why there's all this hullabaloo that we don't think about it. The reality is, Mount Kenya can get nearly anything they ask for from this government, because this government really, really needs to keep and sustain the support of Mount Kenya, right? Now, the ballot is a private decision, and we'll make it in 2027. Can we think strategically between now and then? Can our leaders, starting from the ones who are taking over or trying to take over the regional leadership, start thinking strategically about how to help our people? Can we demand for guaranteed minimum returns for coffee, for tea, for our milk now? Can we have a conversation about the university model now? Can we have a conversation about CBC now? Can we have a conversation about the access to healthcare now? Because of the influence we have, we are very, very good. We are causing political waves and ripples in the country. But rather than talk about personal issues of who is about to get arrested or who is being punished, can we use what we have achieved and the support we have from the public to pressurize government to do things for our people right now? I ask myself, if Gachagua, for example, decided that he is going to push guaranteed minimum returns, or he understands how this thing works, he starts lobbying and making noise and exposing the cartels behind illicit alcohol, the same way he exposes Ruto, for example. What if he started exposing the cartels? Because he was in charge of that particular docket. Why can't he start exposing the cartels behind illicit alcohol? And tell government, I know, and you know that I know that the reason this alcohol has come back is because of A, B, C, D. Now, that is a cause for the community. that will help the community, right? Rather than look like we're just fighting personal fights about self-aggrandizement, why don't we use the capacity, the power, the influence, and the support that we're getting from the public to push government to do things for the public rather than for ourselves? Because unfortunately, the reason there's so much anger and frustration is because even the people who are driving the opposition narrative, except a few here and there, are driving an opposition narrative that is towards how they're going to remove this government from power in 2 years. Now, if I go and tell that to somebody who has an immediate need right now of education or healthcare or food, I haven't helped that person. We need to get an opposition that is talking about current needs of the people today and using its capacity to mobilize the public or to incite the public. Let me use that because that's a word that is happening now, for the benefit of the public. And this is what I was talking about, hate politics. I want to conclude using the same example. When I lost the elections, I had the option of inciting my supporters to hate the guy who beat me and to make sure that they will never go to his office, they'll never apply for bursary, they'll never ask for an electricity connection. I could have told them tumetoka kwa serikali, sasa tunaenda kujipanga mpaka turudi 2027, and we would have been just rabble-rousing in Nyeri town for 5 years. Unfortunately, that would have been very selfish of me, because my supporters would not have been able to access bursary. My supporters would not have been able to access electricity connections or whatever it is, because they would not have asked for them. We always insist that the government must serve everybody because we are taxpayers. But on some things that are personal, like application for bursary, you really actually must go and apply. As a leader, I have a responsibility. I can incite you to not apply, and we suffer together because I'm outside, or I can advise you, go and apply. I am the one who left office, not you. Even when I was in office, you were a consumer of services from my office. Now that I have left office, the next person who is there is supposed to service you. Which is why I end this particular conversation today with a discussion which I must look into, because it was big. When Gachagua said that the people, the musicians and the artists who went to Sikindiki should be sabotaged and boycotted, that was selfish. This is why I mean that. First and foremost, Gachagua has played absolutely no role in the careers of those artists and those musicians to where they are. The reason they are artists, the reason they are musicians, has absolutely Gachagua has played no role to get them to that point, right? We know Samido even before Gachagua came into the scene, right? Jose Gatetuga Tutura, we know him, we know his music. Like anybody else, they are looking for how they can access government support. Today, hate him or love him, you have William Ruto as president, you have Kindiki, controversially, as deputy president, and we have Akina Mutahikawa and everybody else in the dockets that they hold. If you need something from the Ministry of Agriculture, you cannot pretend that the Minister of Agriculture is somebody else except Mutahikawa. He's the one you'd have to go and lobby, right? So these musicians went to lobby Kindiki for their own reason. And since they have learned how politics works, they maneuvered politically and ended up getting there. And they made their own political statements. It is very wrong for a political leader with the kind of status and stature that Gachagua has today, in the region where these people conduct their trade, to now try and call for a boycott of their services because they went to Sikindiki. A lot of people in this town who don't support this government are supplying this government. Every time their tenders floated, a lot of people are applying for those tenders. And some of our people in Mount Kenya who don't support this government, who are saying one term, are getting those supplies. A lot of our people are building roads in this country. A lot of our people are employed in the public service of this government? Are we saying we boycott them? Are we saying we stop relating with our brothers and sisters who are police officers or who are public servants because they are working in Kasongo's government? I think it's important for us not to personalize our politics to that extent. We can argue about policy. We can argue about the things that this government is doing wrong. We can argue about what we need this government to do right. We can even argue about removing this government and making it a one-term. But it is absolutely not in order for you to sabotage somebody's business because he's associating with the government and we don't have another one. If we tell those musicians not to go to Kindiki, whether they came out with 5,000 shillings or 10,000 shillings or 50,000 shillings, where would they have gotten that money from? They are running a business. They are commercial artists. They're not even politicians. They went to figure out how to build and progress their business. Some of them are political operatives and they made their political positions, but you cannot attack a group because they went to seek support from the office, the only office that exists like that one. People have done this all through. People will do this all through. Even after this government leaves power, the next government, there are going to be people who support it and people who don't support it. We cannot be inciting people to boycott government services because it is them who are going to suffer. And that is wrong. It is not good leadership. And I would challenge the leaders that we have to actually be strategic and tactical. Do everything you can to get your people what they can between now and 2027. Then 2027 you can do one term. Hiyo tunaweza fanya. But between now and then, you have people who have to go to hospital, kids who have to go to school, roads that have to be built, electricity connections that have to be done. Do not incite people to boycott getting services that can only be found from where you are. I always insist, even me who didn't vote for this government, have to keep looking for access for services. When I require a service from government, I have to go. If I require a police abstract, if I require a certificate of good conduct, I have to go to this government, right? People who voted for this government and convinced that this government was good cannot be the ones telling us to first boycott it until 2027. Tutafanya kazi 2027 ya kuitoa. Lakini now, you are the ones who know what you promised. Please insist that it is delivered, whether you're in government or not. As always, we are shooting from Rware Central. Chai na mandazi kama kawaida, good pilau, good kuku, good nyama choma. Karibu sana. If you're in Nairobi, we have a communications consultancy firm at Karen, and we are happy to serve you in strategic communications as well. God bless you. God bless Kenya. Asante.